7 years, and that was it. That was the experience of me skateboarding on the freeway and getting arrested when I was 12. And it's kind of funny. Why do I talk about that? Because I was kind of a dumb kid, right? Like going into this job, I was pretty clueless, right? Like my demo, how many guys your first demos were just awful? Oh, like you were just all over the place. Anyone cut themselves in their first demo? Anyone cut Mrs. Jones? No? Yeah? This guy? This guy's been raised the whole time. I don't know.
How about Mrs. Jones' kid?
What was that?
How about cutting Mrs. Jones' kid?
Oh my gosh, that'll get you 5. All right. So we've all had, a lot of us started this job. You weren't very good. I don't know about any of you. I didn't have any experience in saying, oh, why do I keep not selling? And then you describe the customer, it's like, oh, well, that's why. Right? So part of being a good Cutco rep is just being smart about it. See the prospects. Who are our prospects? It's very simple. 30-year-old married with a home. With a home, right? That's it. Now, there's obviously variations in today's society. Some people are divorced or they're together in their relationships, and you can use your own judgment on that. But guys, starting off really simply and strong is the best close is a good prospect. The second best close is a good demo. The second best close is a good demo. And here's an example to illustrate that. The other day, my wife and I went to P.F. Chang's. You know P.F. Chang's? Love P.F. Chang's. So we go there, and we always come back with leftovers because we can't finish everything. And this one night, I'm hungry, and I say, hey, sweetheart, are you hungry? I'm going to make the leftover Chinese food. And she's like, no, I'm full from lunch. I'm not hungry. And then I was like, all right, cool. I'm just going to make some for myself. So then I go in to the kitchen, and then I turn on the stove, and then I throw the Chinese food in. And then what starts to happen? The smell of P.F. Chang's permeates the house. And she's on the couch, and then you just hear her say, oh, that smells really good. And then so what do? I throw the rest of it in there because I know I know it's about to happen. So I was like, okay. And then I get my plate, I make my plate, and then I come sit next to her at the TV, and then I start eating. And then what does she ask?
No.
Can I have a bite? Oh, sure, sweetheart, you can have a bite. And then I'm like, do you just want some? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, let me get you. All right, because I made some extra because I knew she wanted it. So here's the interesting thing. I didn't do anything to have her want to eat that except for make the food, right? The smell, the experience got her hungry for the food. So a good demo is kind of like that. A good demo is like, it starts off a little cold maybe. Mrs. Jones is like, I'm not going to buy it. How many of you guys have that? Mrs. Jones starts off, I'm not going to buy it, right? And then what happens? You cut the penny, right? Then you let her cut the leather or the rope. You cut some tomatoes. And slowly it's this buildup. So to do a good demo, it's not about doing anything crazy, but it's about understanding initially that there is a process to a good demo. There's a process to selling things. So that's what I'm going to teach you today. I'm going to teach you the basic fundamentals of why a basic Cutco demo works. And here's the interesting thing. Every success has a system behind it. Every success. When you think of really good, maybe it's a chain of like a restaurant, or let's take Starbucks, for example. Who here likes Starbucks? I love Starbucks. I go there all the time. I give them all my money, all right? Not all of it, but a lot of it. So Starbucks is great. Here's the interesting thing. You can go to the Starbucks here in this hotel. You could go to San Diego, California. You could go to Vancouver, Washington. And you could go anywhere in the country and ask for a cup of coffee, all right, Pike's Place, all right, or whatever it is, Pike. I know it's Pike's Place. That's in Seattle. Anyways, and it tastes the same, right? Because they figured out, okay, if we make coffee this way, most people seem to like it. And if we make it that way all the time, people just keep liking it, keep buying it. It's a reliable system. The Cutco demo you go through is a reliable system that works. Now, when you're new, it's kind of trust, right? Like you just trust that it works and you just kind of read it. But there's some things that you're doing that you might be aware of or you might not be aware of that are really critical to the selling process. And you'd be amazed, actually, at how many people take the Cutco manual and like duplicate it at other companies. Like, no joke. They look at it and they're like, this is really good. This is really good. And they literally like recreate the manual because it's simple. It's a sales process that works. All right, so let's go into a couple things. I have 7 components to the sales process. 7 components. All right, number 1, we kind of mentioned this. Number 1 is a qualified prospect. A qualified prospect. There's a difference with seeing who you're comfortable seeing and seeing who you want to see. Absolutely. There's a difference with seeing who you're comfortable seeing and then seeing who you want to see. Right now, where I grew up in San Diego wasn't the nicest part of San Diego. So when it came to me doing demos, most of the people that I saw were like really kind of like middle, lower income because that was my family. And that's who I was comfortable seeing. No joke, I remember my mom referred me to one of her rich friends and I did the demo. I was so nervous being in their house. I just wasn't comfortable in that environment. I was 19, I didn't have much exposure to other people than my demographic of friends and family and things like that. So I just wasn't comfortable with those types of people. But here's what was funny, is that my friend, he moved away. He was like done selling Cutco, he moved off, he graduated college, he got another job. So he literally like handed me his old customers. And he did this really cool thing where he would prospect into certain neighborhoods, and he started selling Cutco in this area called Rancho Santa Fe, right? Which in Del Mar, California, which some of you guys have heard of Del Mar. It's like the nicest parts of San Diego. And I remember going in and servicing his customers and sharpening their knives and being in there, and how easy it was for these people to buy thousands of dollars worth of Cutco and not bat an eyelash. And I was like, can I do this all day, every day? This is awesome, right? But what I learned is he was just smart and intelligent about how he asked for leads and who he chose to see demos for, or do demos for. So just consider that. Just throwing that out there for you, that sometimes what's going to help you sell more Cutco is just being in front of the right people, right? And by the way, everybody can buy Cutco. I've sold Cutco in trailer parks. I sold Cutco in a cardboard box one time. I don't recommend it. It was in this guy's office, and he didn't have a table. Anyways, it was weird. He still bought. So, qualified prospect is key. Do the demo in the right setting with the right people. All right, number 2 is establish trust and credibility. Establish trust and credibility, really important. Rapport, goals. Now, here's something interesting. Some of you guys who were maybe in the breakout heard me say this, that when you meet a customer or a person for the first time, they're always asking themselves 2 questions. Do I like this person? Can I trust them? They're always asking those 2 questions. So in order for them to feel comfortable giving you lots of money, because again, remember at the end of this 1 hour, you're asking for thousands of dollars and everybody they know's contact information. Just remember that, right? So you're a stranger, give me everything you have, right? Like that's a little weird. There's a gap there. So you have to close that gap. What closes that gap there is that relationship, that connection. And it might sound really simple, but here was my thought. If I ever had a no sale, here was my thought. If I was their child, would they have bought? If they didn't give me leads, my question was, if I was their child, would they have given me leads? What's the usual answer? Yeah, so a mature rep in the developing process of yourself selling Cutco, you will be able to tell at the end of the demo why you didn't get leads and why you didn't sell. And if that answer is blaming the customer, you got the wrong answer, right? There's a lot of things that maybe you skipped in the demo or you weren't aware of that you didn't make the right connection. Most of the time, it's not building the right rapport. The right rapport is simply that they trust you and they like you. It's not about what you say to impress them. It's about how you make them feel, asking them good questions. A good thing I always like to ask my customer is, hey, what do you do for fun when you're not hanging out waiting for the knife guy? That was my question. Hey, what do you like to do for fun when you're not hanging out waiting for the knife guy? And they're like, oh, well, we like to do this, we like to do that. And find something interesting about that. They start to get excited when they talk about it. It could be their kids. It could be their kids playing sports. I remember one customer, I was like, so what do you guys do for fun when you're not hanging out waiting for the knife guy? And they were like, well, we race pigeons.
Race?
Exactly. That was what I said. I was like, race pigeons? Like, what do you mean? Like,
yeah.
They run? Like, do you mean like the ones that fly, right? Not the ones that like you shoot in the air? Like, that's not where, explain to me. And he's like, no. And he explained this whole thing where there's these pigeons that are called homing pigeons. You guys probably heard about these. And they have these things where they can fly up into the air and they spin around 3 times. They orient themselves with the direction north, south, east, west, and they know exactly the direction of where their home is, and they instantly start flying home. And they track this. They time these birds, and they let them go, and then they time it, and then they drive home, and then they see how fast it takes a bird to get there. But there's also pigeon racing clubs, by the way. There's groups of people who get together, and they drive to some weird area somewhere between where everybody lives, and they let all the pigeons go, and they time them, and they drive home, and they see how fast, who's got the fastest racing pigeon. This is people's lives, right? This is their life. And he was lit. He was fired up. So you know what I asked him? Where do you hold them? Oh, they're in the garage. Can you show me? I have to see this. I go to this guy's garage. It is wall-to-wall pigeon coops. Wall-to-wall. So my next question, right? How much does a racing pigeon cost? Anywhere from $700 to $3,000. Starting at $700. Am I going to get price objection on this demo? No. I hope he doesn't, because you know what I'm going to say? Come on, dude. All right? And he had a lot of pigeons, by the way. A lot of pigeons. And it was awesome. And we talked about that, and we hung out, and then we went back in the kitchen, and then he's like, I was like, wow, that was really interesting. Like, thank you. Like, I will probably never experience that again in my life. That was so cool. And he was like, yeah. Hey, don't you have some knives to show me? And I was like, oh, yeah. And then it was the quickest homemaker ever, right? Because there's that trust there. Because how many people does he know that come over to his house and actually think he's kind of crazy, right? Or never even choose to ask. People love to talk about their favorite thing in the world, which is themselves and what they're interested in. So take time every demo to find out what that is, and you're going to build that kind of trust. Another good advanced thing advanced reps will do this on demos, is they will find out Mrs. Jones' objection before it comes up. Find out Mrs. Jones' objection before it comes up. This is a smart thing to do. When you're building a rapport, it's good to find out about like their kids and their family, going to college, remodeling their house. You know, if Mrs. Jones tells me during the rapport building process and I say, oh, do you have some kids? And they say, yes. And I say, oh, how old are they? And they're like, oh, well, one's 19, he's off at Emory University, and then I got this one, they're off at Purdue University, and they got all these kids off at private school. What am I now knowing will be the objection when I finish my presentation? My kids are going to school. Now let me ask you, how much does that probably cost for both those kids to go to college? Somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000. Pretty clear, right? If it was $41,000, would their kids still go to college? Of course it would. They're still going to bring it up as an objection, because you have to understand, everybody always complains about money. Always. It will never go away. Here's the funny thing. They will complain about money to you, about how much they're spending on school. They'll buy a homemaker, and then they're going to go to the mall later and buy more stuff. That's what happens. We are driven to buy things. It's very normal. It happens all the time. Just understand that's okay. And your job is to understand those objections early on so you can help them with the decision-making process. Has there ever been someone whose kids were going to college that bought a homemaker plus 8? Absolutely. Is there anyone who just got married who wound up buying some Cutco? Of course. Is there someone who moved into a brand new house that wound up buying a bunch of Cutco? Absolutely. Is there someone who is remodeling their house that bought a bunch of Cutco? Of course. So every objection your customer is going to give you, has that situation ever happened before in the history of the world and the customer still bought? The answer is yes. So understand that those things will come up, but a smart rep will pay attention to those things during the demo and make note of them. So at the end, you use it when it comes to closing, and I'll teach you guys that in a little bit. All right, next we're going to go into number 3. When it comes to selling Cutco, the number 1 was qualified prospect. Number 2 is establishing trust and credibility. Number 3 is identify a problem. And it might be a problem a customer knows or a customer is not aware of. Right? Sometimes you do a demo and the customer's like, oh, I've got knives, I'm good. Right? Then you point out wood handles and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So sometimes it's getting them aware of the problems that they didn't know they had. Selling things, and this is kind of a concept I hope you guys take away, selling a product, or in general, making a sale, it's not about making somebody do something that they don't want to do. It's very important. It's not about making people do something they don't want to do. It's about helping people make a good decision. And what's helpful about making a good decision is knowing a problem that you're solving, right? That's what a sale is. It's solving a problem a customer has. So what are the problems customers have in their house that Cutco solves? Food preparation, right? Cleanup. What was that?
Time in the kitchen.
Time in the kitchen.
Expenses, is there any kitchen also?
never going to buy knives again. It's an investment. And for some people, your friends are going to like it. Right? And that's another thing to kind of pay attention to when you're with a customer. Identify if they were to buy Cutco, why would they buy it? Interesting question. If this customer were to buy Cutco, what would be the reason for them buying it? And a question that I always used to ask, and it's funny because I stopped doing this for a while, but then someone taught me how to do it correctly, and it really helped. The $1,000 shopping spree. Be honest, who here like just kind of doesn't show it anymore? $1,000 shopping spree? Okay, cool. I stopped showing it because I was like, whatever. Do people really win? But people actually do, which is interesting. All right, so they do win. Trust me, we had a rep in our office whose grandma won $1,000. That was cool. But here's
A rep in our office won last campaign.
Did they?
Yeah.
Awesome. Where was that?
In Vancouver, Canada.
Awesome. Okay, so here's how you have, so when you ask the question, so Mrs. Jones, we have this drawing. I'm going to put you in for $1,000 just for sitting down with me today. If you won $1,000 today, where would you spend it? If you won $1,000 today, where would you spend it? That's a great question because it tells you how they buy things and why they buy things. I had a customer say, I would go to Nordstrom's and buy some shoes I was looking at. I was like, some shoes, meaning like a pair or two? And she's like, yeah, there's this pair I was eyeing. It's like $600. I don't want to spend the money, but if I had $1,000, I would do that. So that kind of a customer, why would they buy Cutco? Because they like nice things. Is it to save them a bunch of money and it's going to save them time? Maybe a little bit, but it's because it's the best. That's why they're going to buy. So when I'm doing the presentation, what am I going to emphasize? It's the best. There's no other knives like Cutco out there, right? It's very exclusive. You can't buy it in stores. That's why people love Cutco. Oh, okay, I see, right? So, but sometimes they say, you know what? We got this. We've been trying to fix this freaking sink in the bathroom forever. So what does that also tell you that might be an objection later on in the demo? They're remodeling some stuff. So what happens, you're building all this information. Your demo isn't, again, we're not like changing the demo. We're just helping you understand why things are said, and it's going to help you make the demo even better. All right, so let's keep going. So when we're talking about identifying problems, find out why the customer would buy stuff. And the junk knives, by the way, how many guys have done done a demo and the customer actually had pretty sweet knives, right? Like they had some Henkels or some Wusthof or some shit. Great. So here's the cool thing. I asked to see the knives before, like early in the demo. I say, oh yeah, grab out your favorite knives before we start. They bring them out, and then I'm aware, or at least pay attention when you walk in the kitchen. Notice if they have Henkels on the countertop or whatever. And then when I do the junk knife section, I say, so Mrs. Jones, normally what I do in this section is I would educate the customer on the differences of quality. You know, you're someone who already obviously knows quality because you have Henkels or Wusthof, and very few people have that. So like that's really awesome you have these, by the way. So I'm just going to go through this part really briefly. And what happens is now they're like, right, of course. I'm not going to use wood handles. Thank you for acknowledging that, right? But it's like you respect them by going through that part a little more briefly, if that's the case. And I'm not saying you just start cutting up parts of your demo, but just be aware of those things, because they're not going to be then enthralled by the fact that you explain to them wood handle knives. They're going to be appreciative that you respect their time, and also that you respected them for having invested in some quality knives. So that's with the junk knife section, identify the problem. All right, number 4 is provide solution. In the sales process, you have to provide a solution. It's not about the features, it's about the benefits. When someone buys a security system, they're not buying a security system, what are they buying? Safety. Safety. When someone's buying a light bulb, they're not buying a light bulb, what are they buying? Lights. All right? When someone's buying a Cutco knife, they're not buying a universal wedge lock handle, they're buying comfortability. They're buying something that's dishwasher safe, that's going to save them time they don't have to think about. So when it comes to the features and benefits section, guys, that's what it's about. It's about the benefit, not just the feature. So when you go through those parts of the demo, tailor it to the customer and have fun with it, by the way, right? And this is, learn to make your demo more interactive. This might help you with your presentation, but learn to ask lots of questions. When I would say, Mrs. Jones, the universal wedge lock handle is also dishwasher safe. Do you guys have a dishwasher? And then if they're like, and then I'm like, oh, are you the dishwasher? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I was the dishwasher too as a kid. All right, because I was the dishwasher as a kid. But asking questions to keep them engaged throughout the entire presentation, that's key. All right, but provide solutions. All right, names and uses. Speak everything as though they already own it. This is a really big key. I remember learning about that. What was that?
Is that 5 or still 4?
I think it's still 4. Yeah, we're still on 4. We're going through providing the solution. The names and uses, right? When you're talking about Cutco, instead of just saying, here is a trimmer, Mrs. Jones, what you're going to love about this trimmer is that, have you ever cut a tomato with a dull knife? What happens? Like, you know, it squishes it. Oh, this thing is like night and day. Do you have a tomato? We have to try this out. Oh, you don't? Here, I brought some. Right? Always bring tomatoes. That's like the one demo you have to do on every presentation. Right? So, and by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. Cutco's a great knife. It's the best in the world. But if you can tell their knives are super, super good and they're probably pretty sharp too, maybe don't have them compare their knives with the Cutco one on the tomato. Any of you guys ever had that where a demo didn't go as well as you were hoping?
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. I had this guy who was a Snap-on tool dealer, and I was cutting the leather, and I had him cut it with his knife, and then the Cutco one, and it was like exactly the same. And he was like, "Don't you hate it when the demo doesn't work the way you're hoping?" I was like, "Yeah." And he bought some table knives. He bought table knives. That was pretty funny. So, anyways, just be aware of those things. But for the most part, it obviously works in Cutco's favor. So. Make sure that you're aware of those things and cut a lot of stuff. Make the demo interactive. Here's a cool little tip on the demo. When you're going through the close or when you're going through the blocks, Mrs. Jones, one of the things you're going to love about Cutco blocks is, remember that guarantee we talked about? Well, in the back of your block is actually going to have a sticker with the 1-800 number, so if you ever need to call us for servicing, you have the number right there. Telling us something little like that is like, oh, that's cool, on my block. Right, on the back of my block. So create ownership when you talk about things. Don't just say, it's a knife, here's your knife. What you're going to love about this, it creates ownership. People think of things in pictures. They visualize themselves using it. So make sure you use descriptive words like that. All right, number 5, price comparison. Whenever you're making a sale, you always want to do a price comparison. Really practice this. I would say this is one area that I really mastered as a rep that made a big difference. And when I was doing the Wusthof price comparison, you want to sell them Wusthof. You want them to want to buy Wusthof. I used to even tell them, I would say, Ms. Jones, and if Cutco didn't exist, I would personally buy Wusthof. It's the best knives out there in stores. If Cutco didn't exist, it's a great set of knives. But the way you talk about Wusthof, I'll just kind of go through this section. So, Mrs. Jones, have you ever priced fine cutlery before? No? Okay. There's a wide variety of quality and prices available. I'm sure, obviously, you'd agree we can't compare Cutco to a cheap set of knives found at a local bargain store like Walmart. So I actually brought with me a price comparison for a set very similar to Cutco. It's called Wusthof. Have you heard of it before? No? Okay. Wustof's a very high-quality set of cutlery made in Germany. Right? You know, they make lots of other great stuff in Germany, like BMWs, and really high. They're known for quality stuff. They have really high-quality steel, high carbon stainless. They have very comfortable. They have very durable handles, and they have their hand sharpened. So it's a really good set of knives across the board. However, you can see on price on this. By the way, you can see the price for this set is $3,520. If you're lucky, sometimes you can find it on sale for about $1,999. So let me just show you the differences between Wusthof and Cutco, though. All right. So Wusthof has the standard handles versus Cutco has those comfortable, safe, ergonomic handles, and then I hand them the Cutco knife. So you can, again, pick it up and like, oh, yeah, it does have that. And then as far as the edges go, most of them are straight edges versus ours have those double the edge. Remember when we cut that leather? Oh, yeah, I do. And then also, theirs only has a guarantee covering manufacturer's defects, which basically means if you drop the knife and break the tip off, they won't replace it. Versus Cutco, no matter what. One day, when your kids are like, like when your kids are growing up and you have to pass something down to them, you can pass them this set of Cutco and they're still going to have it. They're going to have it forever. And they're like, whoa. So, as far as the price comparison, so, when you see, I know you, if you ask anyone who owns Cutco, they'll tell you it's 10 times better than any knives they've ever used. But just considering the guarantees and unique features, most people would agree that it's at least twice as good as Henkel's and Wusthof. Well, when something offers twice the quality and twice the value, what would you expect to pay in price? Twice the price. By the way, that's really important you practice that section so you can say it so you elicit the response twice the price. Because sometimes if you don't have it down that confidently and they just say more or $1,000, right? It means you didn't do that right. So you want to be confident with that where you're like, yeah, so it should cost, so that's going to make a set of Cutco cost about $4,000. So let me show you what you get with that. And then they go to the next page. I say, let me show you what you get with that. And they're now thinking, holy crap, this is going to be $4,000. All right? And then when I go into the close, then I offer the ultimate, the signature, and the homemaker, and I consider them, I say, this is our basic, this is our medium, and this is our complete set, we call the ultimate set. And then here's the question I always like to ask. If you were considering a set of Cutco, which one would you get the most use out of over the next 20 years? Which one would you get the most use out of over the next 20 years? Because if you just ask them, which one would you like best, they might be like, well, what am I going to use this week for dinner? Probably just the homemaker set. But when I say over the next 20 years, they're like, well, shoot, if it was 20 years from now, I would get the whole freaking thing. Cool. All right, so the complete set. All right, so Mrs. Jones, tell you what, with that complete set, fortunately, we're not sold in stores, so it's not $4,000. In fact, the ultimate set, it actually has twice the number of pieces as this set of Wusthof. Our complete set is actually only $24.59, whatever it is. How much is it? $24.59? I don't even know how much the ultimate set is anymore. I don't have my manual in front of me. I apologize. Okay, so $23.49. And you say, and Mrs. Jones, here's the coolest part. And I like to say it this way. This is my infomercial part of the demonstration. All right. If you want to get this set today, I can actually include a matching kitchen tool set, and then I'll go through, or the entertainer pack for free. Which one would you get the most use out of? All right, great. And then here's a close that I learned from a rep, and I thought it was pretty cool, like a calm way to go through the close. And I just say, so Mrs. Jones, I wouldn't be doing my job if I came over here and just got you really excited about Cutco and then just left. So I have to ask, do you want to go ahead and get that? And I say it with like a smile and a relaxed tonality about spending that much money. And it's really important that you're relaxed during this part of the presentation. Because if you're like, so, would you like to get that? Right? How many of you guys know you're terrible playing poker? All right? I am terrible, but my poker face is awful. My demo face is good, right? Because sometimes when you have a good hand, you're like, right? Like you just don't know how to express it correctly. So here's a challenge. Stand in front of a mirror and go through the close out loud to yourself in the mirror and look at your face. Look at how your lips look when you ask for the order. That's what they're seeing. They have to be okay with what they see. A customer will never buy what a rep is uncomfortable selling. That is a fact. A customer will never buy what a rep is uncomfortable selling. So learn to get comfortable with those bigger sets. Yes. Which part? Which part?
You got from the rep.
Yeah, the close is, so I wouldn't be doing my job if I came over here and got you really excited about Cutco and there's left. So I have to ask, would you like to go and get that today? Very calm, upbeat, positive.
Very, very assumptive, like as if you're expecting us.
Yeah, would you like to go and do that? And this, by the way, this is very important that you practice this. And I know this sounds kind of dumb, but the reality is professionals who make a lot of money in their craft, like pharmaceutical sales, make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They role play like all of the time. They practice their scripts. Just because you're not in training anymore, don't think that you're too good for role playing. I still role play. I'm a realtor rep. I role play in my garage by myself my scripts, every one of them. Because I understand now the value of knowing it word for word, because when I'm in front of a customer, I got to be confident to ask for a lot of money. So you got to get used to that. All right, so practice it, get used to it. It's going to make a big difference in your closing ratio when you can ask them for that. All right, so that was number 5 was price comparison. Number 6 was present the offer, which you guys just learned how to close. And number 7, my last point, is negotiate terms. Negotiating terms is because obviously not everyone's going to say yes right away when you ask them for something. What you want, when someone gives an objection or a concern, very important not to be reactive by nature, because we'll often react when they say, well, I don't know, I just think I can afford it. And then we're like, we'll either respond one of two ways. One, we talk really fast to like drop down, all right? Or we like become a little more aggressive, depending on your personality. So it's really important when a customer gives an objection to pause and wait for 1 to 3 seconds before you say anything. 1 to 3 seconds before you say anything. And then what you want to do to close is you just clarify the objection. If they say it's too much money, I say, okay, is it too much for your budget or is it just too much for knives? That's a great question. Is it too much for your budget, or is it just too much for knives? Because if it's too much for their budget, then that means they see the value, but this is not the best fit for them right now. If they say it's too much for knives, that's an indication for me, man, they didn't see the value when they went through the demo. So there's something that didn't connect there. So here's something that I kind of skipped over, but you can add this in anywhere in your demo. To help people see the value of Cutco, relate what they value spending a lot of money on with Cutco. Relate what they value spending a lot of money on with Cutco. Everybody has something they're comfortable spending a lot of money on, right? What are some things that you guys are comfortable spending a lot of money? And by the way, it might not even seem like a lot of money to you because you value it, but what are some things that you guys don't mind spending more money on? Climbing gear. Okay, so this is great. How much are climbing shoes? $50 to $100? Dang.
Ropes are about
$300 for ropes? Okay. Awesome. What else?
Hockey equipment.
What was that?
Hockey equipment.
Hockey equipment. Oh, great. How much is a stick?
It's $300.
How many sticks do you have?
2 or 3.
2 or 3? How much are skates?
My one at 450.
$450? Okay. How much is equipment?
That's like a cheap. I played goalie. My equipment was like $3,500, $4,000.
There you go. So does Mrs. Jones have something like that she spends her money on? Probably. Look around their house. Pay attention to those things. If you notice they have really nice framed art, they see value in buying things like that. So maybe make a conversation about those things, right? If they have, simple ones are golf and tools, right? Mr. Jones is there. It's like, Mr. Jones, have you heard of Snap-on tools? Cutco's like the Snap-on tools. They're not cheap. You can only buy it direct, but how long are you going to have it? The rest of your life. So these will definitely be a bit more expensive than your other knives you're used to spending money on, but I can promise you they'll be worth it, just like the Snap-on tools you have in your garage. And when you say that, they're like, okay, I get it. I get it. People who are, Mrs. Jones, shoes, all right? My wife is an excellent shoe shopper, and I didn't realize how much money can be spent on women's shoes. All right? I had no idea to the extent. Anyone know how much a pair of Louboutins go for?
700-800.
Yeah, starting at around 600, going to, you could probably spend as much as you want, really, right? So everyone has value. They see value in spending money on certain things. So the important thing is Mrs. Jones has that, so try and relate it to what she values spending money on, and that's going to make it easier to close because it's like, Mrs. Jones, and here's what you can say. It's like, it's kind of like, I notice you guys take really nice care of your house, and it's kind of like, a nice piece of art you have up. And I know those things aren't cheap, but when you've had it for 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to be really happy you have it. If they have kids, one of the things I'll use as an analogy is I'll say, I totally understand that it is definitely not cheap, Mrs. Jones, but here's what I can say. In 20, 30 years from now, when you have grandkids coming over and you have to cut like tomatoes for their salad, you're still going to be using this Cutco. And you paint that picture that's like 30 years from now, and they're like, whoa. It's kind of cool. And you can see them connect with it because people see value in long term. And they also, especially when we're younger, it doesn't make as much sense to us. But I can tell you from experience now, I always now spend more money on quality things that are going to last. How many of you guys have noticed that yourselves? You're now starting to spend more money on quality things because you see, yeah. So just pay attention to that. Your customers do, and it's going to help you sell more Cutco. So just to review, guys, then I'll have a couple minutes for questions. The best close is a good prospect. The second best close is a good demo. So take the time to find the right people you want to do demos for. Establish the trust and credibility by taking the time to get to know them and having an awesome experience. Establish trust and credibility. Identify problems that they have with their kitchen, how Cutco can solve it. Provide solutions. Do a solid price comparison where they see the value of good knives. Present the offer confidently and casually, and negotiate terms. Objections are not a bad thing. It's a part of life. Learning to handle objections confidently is going to help you sell a lot of things in life. That's it. The end. All right, any questions? Demo questions or something that I went over kind of quickly that you didn't quite catch yet?
What was the statement you said about the artwork? You said the statement, not the one before it, the two statements. When you said about, I know it's not cheap, but I can assure you that whatever, like, I could say it.
About the grandkids?
Yeah, before that, you said something else also. You were saying-
Snap-on tools?
It's like I can guarantee that, yeah, something like that. That's Snap-on tools.
Okay.
That's really good.
Okay. So just like you spend a lot of money on your Snap-on tools, right? Buying cookies is exactly the same. It's a little more expensive at first, but in the long run, you'll be so happy you got it. Yeah.
A little bit about the grandkids. Do you say that after they say, it's a little too much money? Do you just kind of just like how do you?
Well, I clarify a little bit. Thank you for asking, because I clarify a little bit. I'm like, okay, is it too much for your too much for your budget, or too much for knives? And I kind of get a feel if they're just saying that because they look around their house and I'm like, okay, so you're telling me $200 is really too much for your budget right now? I mean, like I've sold enough where I'm like, okay, that's baloney, right? I know you could afford it if you wanted to. You're just telling me this because there's something you're uncomfortable with. Here's something to know about when you're making a sale. People automatically have a wall up when it comes to sales. So a good way to kind of get that out of the way is if they say it's too much money. This is something I'm going to teach in another workshop on closing, which is how to handle objections, which is acknowledging the objection. All right. So when someone says, it's just too much for our budget, and I can say, I totally understand. And when you say that, they're like, well, you understand? Because when they tell you the objection, what are they expecting you to do? No, this is better, and it's like this battle. It is not a battle, right? It is, again, it's helping Mrs. Jones make a good decision. So, and part of what's behind everything that I say, if you guys can tell it in my voice, it's just conviction. It's like just pure belief that they're going to spend that money on something completely dumb that's not nearly as cool as Cutco. And so when I tell them, so that whole part is, it's just too much for your budget, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, we just never spent that kind of money on knives. If that's what they say, then I'm like, hey, you know what? I totally understand. I kind of felt that same way too when I started this job. But here's what I found: when I've met as many people as I've met who've owned it for 20, 30, 40 years, and they still have it, I mean, it's totally worth it. And I know you're not used to spending that much, but I can promise you, like anything you've invested in that's been a good investment, you've had it for a long time, Cutco is just the same thing. So what I recommend, Mrs. Jones, just try it out on the 5-pay. It's only $230 today. And we split it over 5 months. If after 1 month you don't like it, just let me know, come by and pick it up. But I think you're going to like it. And when you say it with that sincerity, it's really hard to say no to that. As long as, again, it's in front of a good prospect. If I'm sitting in front of someone who's like a single parent in an apartment, that's going to be hard to do that. I would probably not go that route. I would say, hey, I totally understand. Because there are some people who are like, and you guys have those customers who are like, I want everything, but they're not in a place where they can get everything, right? I want the ultimate set. And they're like, well, I'm going to wait until I can afford it. Well, awesome, right? Like I want to drive around to get into places, right? But I can't afford a Ferrari, which is what I want. So I'm not now just going to ride a skateboard around everywhere until I can afford a Ferrari. I'm going to get something in the middle like a Toyota, which is what I have, right? So with Mrs. And by the way, depending on your report, I might actually tell that to him. I might say that, like, hey, I totally understand, but you know what? I want a Lamborghini, but I got a Toyota for now. So let me show you the best option for people. If you want to get this set, let me show you the best option people start with. This is an interesting thing I didn't talk about, but you want to unhook your customer from what they really want if they can't afford it. It's a tough thing sometimes when you're on a demo and they're so sold on this, like, no, I want it, right? Sometimes you have to play like you're a best friend to someone who just got broken up with, right? Like that, when they're in a relationship, you're like, oh, that person's so awesome, and then they break up, you're like, that guy was dumb anyways. You don't want to be with him, right? Oh, this guy's better, right? And you kind of like direct them into something that's going to, capture their attention more, because obviously they're not going to go that route. So you kind of like sell them off of it. If it's too big, you're like, you know what? It's honestly, you really need 32 knives, right? And when I say it like that, they're like, well, yeah, when you say it like that, probably not. They don't tell that to me, but that's what they get. And they're like, oh yeah, you know what a lot of people like to do is they start with this one. It's called it's the basic set. This one's actually only $11.39. And you can do it on 5 payment. It's only $230. So when I drop down from the Ultimate to the Homemaker, that's how it sounds. It's like, this one's only $1,079 or whatever the price is. And they're like, oh. You'll have customers, if you do that correctly, that'll say, yeah, let's just go with the small one today. And their experience of buying Cutco is that Homemaker is like the smallest thing they make. There you go. And by the way, in my blue book, something my man taught me, and then we got to wrap up so you guys can go to your next breakout, or actually general session, is I took out the catalog. I put it in the back of my blue book, the part that also the starter sets. I took this out and put it in the back of my blue book. That way it's not available for them to go through. It's kind of like if after we go through that process on the Homemaker and the Ultimate and the SIG and they're like, no, I'm like, all right, well, we do a lot, and I just kind of go back here. We have these things called starter sets. These things are great to start with, and then I pull it out from the back. So it's not as significant. Because also the worst thing you want to do is go through your demo, close in a homemaker, and then they're like, wait, what's this thing? I didn't know you have more sets than this. I'm just going to get this gift set with 3 pieces. It's the worst. Anyways, yes?
Just like really quick.
Yeah.
So, is the reason you started doing that because like people like were going through, or did you just like want to do it so like,
A couple of things. It's confidence on my part that I'm going to close big, and then also it's because I didn't want them to go through that on accident.
right?
It just gives me a little bit more control of the flow of the demo. Really, that's all it is. Yeah.
And to kind of build on that, how do you keep them from moving through like a hand or
It's just, so that's a great question, and this is a real developmental tool in Cutco that you just need to get really good with the flow. Where do you stumble? Because it's like, if you don't have control of the flow of everything, they will take it, right? So you have to be on spot, everything, just no pauses, just like go through everything. And it's kind of hard to like get that, but I don't have people take the blue book from me. It just doesn't happen anymore. So, yeah.
So I know, I've always thought not to give the negative what-if scenarios, but this is kind of like if you find yourself that you ask the question like, is this too much for your budget or too much on knives? And they give you it's too much for knives, so you're like, what did I do wrong?
Sure, it's a good question. We didn't talk
on the Cutco. If they're looking at not getting something big or even going as far as a no sale because of a blunder at some point, how do you recover that for like the referrals?
Great question. I wouldn't even say as far as that has to get to referrals yet. I would still, if they were to say it's too much for my budget or too much for knives, I would be like, hey, I totally understand. I felt the same way, but honestly, I mean, you're gonna have these for the rest of your life. And I would kind of reiterate on and again, it's kind of like that thing that you bought, you spent a lot of money on. I would resell them on that, and I'd say, but you know what? If this is too much for you, let me show you something that you can start with to get a feel for it. Because those people, here's all I'm trying to do. It's probably an awful analogy. It's like a drug dealer, right? Okay. It's like you give a little taste. Just get a trimmer. Just try it out. Let me know what you think. Call me. Right? That's a terrible analogy, but do you guys get it? Once they try it, they're like, oh my God, this is so good, right? And then you can call them back for more. Hopefully, none of you, yeah, all right. This is just for selling Cutco, okay? Yes. Last question, then you guys got to go.
You're saying how you'll find out an objection that they may use beforehand, like child history that you see, and then you bring that objection up before you ask.
Okay, great question. Okay, this is the last piece of advice. That's a great question. So when I'm closing, here's what I say. So I close and say, would you like, Mrs. Jones? What we do in most people's situations that have like kids going off to school and they're spending a bunch of money on that is we actually have the payment options. So we actually like to split it up on 5 payments to make it easier because we know we're not the only thing that you're spending money on right now. So I'll actually use their objection as to people who, in their scenario or in their situation, why they buy Cutco on the 5-pay. So when you're saying that, you're acknowledging you understand their concern because, again, even though the kids are going to college, are they still going to go to Costco and spend $500 that weekend? Of course they are. So again, it's just acknowledging the fact that they have that concern, but here's how people with that concern usually handle it. Great question. Thank you. All right, hey, that's it, guys. I got to kick you out because the next session is with Mr. Jay Papazan, who's going to be awesome. Have fun. If you have any questions, I'll walk with you and talk with you.